Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7:04. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our first order of business is to approve minutes. We have minutes from last April 20th or 22nd? I'm not sure.
21st.
21st,
Yep.
April 21st. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes? Thank you. That's Dan Guide who made the motion and Ken Anthony's seconding. Thank you. Any corrections, comments,
I have a question.
additions? What?
Am I even allowed to vote if I wasn't part of that?
If
I just
you may
abstain?
have seen,
could just
you certainly can unless if you feel that if you basically feel they're okay, you certainly can vote. Yeah. Okay, there being no comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
that's unanimous. Okay, and then we have minutes from August. What was that date? I don't have a computer. The August 2022 meeting. I think it was the 15th or 13th or something.
25th?
25th. August 20, that's my son's birthday, I should know. The minutes from August 25th. Can I have a motion to approve?
I so move.
Ken Anthony, thank you. A second?
I second.
And Courtney, second. Any additions? Corrections? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Dan, you
Aye.
too? Yep. That's unanimous. Okay. The next order of business is, I believe, the Q&A, isn't it?
Facilities tours.
Oh, the facilities tours. Okay. As most of you are probably aware, Matt was good enough to take us on tours on 3 different days to the various facilities and to point out some of the capital improvement maintenance needs and accomplishments. And I guess he is willing to do more if there's anybody who was unable to attend any of those meetings who wants to see the facilities. By the way, I did attend a subcommittee meeting for the school board today, and the facility subcommittee is moving forward a CIP to the board for approval. Yay, we're finally going to have a CIP. Does anybody have a wish, need to go that wasn't able to make it? Okay, there being none, then thank you, Matt, very much for doing
Thank you.
those.
Thank you.
tours.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Those tours were great.
They were helpful. I'm sorry I missed the last one. I was really curious.
Yeah, well, we can go and do it again.
Maybe.
Okay,
All right. I'll reach out.
all right,
Get busy, so.
yeah.
Are doing it, I would like to, and I'm hoping that our guest here tonight would join us also, Terry Beckett, who's part of my neighborhood.
Okay,
Well, Matt was willing to do it, so why don't I leave it up to you folks to communicate directly with Matt to see if, you can set something up. It would be good if you two wanted to do it, if you did it on the same day, because
Right.
Matt has kind of a busy schedule. Okay, Matt, we have a bunch of questions we gave you and you have some answers for us.
okay. We're gonna wait for the projector to get loaded up.
While you're waiting for that projector, I want to make a comment, which is that by the RSA, what is required is for the administration to give us documents that they have that we request. It is not to create documents. It's not to hold Q&A sessions. It's not to guide us through following the money. That's all above and beyond what's required in the RSA. So I just wanted to credit our administration for what they do. It doesn't mean that we're going to be in agreement on everything, but it's a real good start to building a budget. So.
Okay. So I'm going to pretty much do this presentation in order of the questions as they are in my Google Drive. And also, I just wanted to let you know, one of the questions included what kind of equipment, buildings that you have. What I'm going to be doing is I'm also going to be including the list of exposures that we have with Primex. So it lists every single building, what the value is, every single, like if you go across the bottom, like there's the automotive, these are all of our vehicles, and what the values are. And this is just insurance value. So we're going to be putting that in your Google Drive. So starting at the top here, let's see, the first question deals with support staff at Bakey Memorial in the middle school. Let me make sure my sound is good. Is it okay? Okay, good. Why are the budget amounts versus so much different budgeted 110,000, 92,000, and 71,000 versus spent 32,000, 27,000, 71,000? And why was the middle school support staff budget increased for 22-23 proposed increase 93,000 versus 71,000 when all other schools remain similar to the previous year budget amounts? The answer is we cannot hire enough paraprofessionals to fill all open positions. So the board changed the positions into teachers last November. Hiring teachers is easier than hiring paraprofessionals. We filled some of the teaching positions last year, and they are all filled for this year. Filling staff positions will be a problem going forward. The next,
Because
we can't find enough paraprofessionals.
Okay.
Okay. Teachers, we can find more teachers easier. And just to kind of clarify more, we're combining 2 para positions into 1 teacher position. And we feel that we can get more education out of a single teacher. And by the way, the teaching schools are turning out teachers slower than the teachers are retiring. So this is going to be a problem going forward. The next question deals with teacher initiatives for Bakey Memorial Middle School and High School. What are these specifically, and why are there no amounts budgeted for them, but they money is being spent?
You can fix my grammar error. It's at midnight.
just proof that they don't change any of their questions.
There are actual costs related to ACP incentives, which are budgeted elsewhere, and they gave you the account number. This relates to a CBA or collective bargaining agreement requirement, where we budget one number and account for the cost according to state reporting requirements. So you'll see the budget in one part of the budget, and then the cost will go wherever it's been approved. The next one deals with substitute at Bakey. Why was this line item only budgeted at 43,000, yet 74,000 was spent? What caused the increase in spending, and where did the funds come from? Why was there an increased need for substitutes? Was it teacher leave, sick leave, or other circumstances? And the answer is we've had an unprecedented absent rate due to COVID. Additionally, there are few substitutes in the marketplace. We've had to increase our daily rate to be greater than the surrounding schools to attract substitutes. On the funding side, we have not been able to fill all of our vacant positions, which easily covered the additional costs. So substitutes at the high school. Why was this line item only budgeted at 44,000, yet 104,000 was spent? And the same for the prior year, 44,000 budgeted and 96,000 spent. What caused the increase in spending, and where did the funds come from, and why was there an increased need for substitutes? Was it teacher leave, sick leave, or other circumstances? And I said, please see Bakey answer, substitute answer above. It's the same. The next question deals with Memorial SRO services. Why was there no money in the 2022-23 budget if there was spending on this for last year? Where did the funds come from? And there was no mention about adding an SRO at other buildings. How will those be funded as well? Here, I should switch to my reading glasses. Oh, that's much better. We've been working with local law enforcement for the past several years, not knowing when the project will finish. Half of the funds for the Memorial SRO came from our lease agreement with SLC. That SLC is the company that's renting the old middle school. The remainder came from other appropriations not spent, such as not being able to fill positions. Tuition in other in-state public schools. Why is the 2022-23 budget at 22,000 when last year, 2 years, were only budgeted for 6,000 and 7,500K respectively, and only spent 2,275 and 5,500? What other state schools would fall into this category? How many students would cover this for the new amount? And why is there an increase? Do the parents or state pay for any portion of the spending? This amount is used to cover the cost to send students out of district as per their alternative learning plans. And there's $7,500. Cost for 6 teachers to provide up to 40 hours each for summer school instruction, again, $7,500. And 6 teachers to provide up to 40 hours each of after-school tutoring for course recovery, $7,500. We switched from competency-based course recovery to a more traditional 100-point scale. As a result, we reduced the competency recovery days during the school year and may need summer school for students to get course credit to graduate on time. We've had a discussion about what charges for those services will be billed to parents. The next one deals with online access fees, regular program. Jamie.
Just a question for clarification, if I might. So what you're doing, if I'm understanding, is the budgeting plan is going to be, you're going to cover it here and then figure out whether or not you're going to be billing parents, but you're going to be billing that into the budget. Is that a proper assumption?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a Bakey School, and this is online access fees for regular program. Why was there nothing budgeted for it, but yet 29,000 was spent? Where did the funds come from? The original budget was created by one building principal and expended by another. I reviewed and agreed with the new building principal's coding of the expenditures, and those expenditures align with state reporting. This issue is resolved for fiscal year 23. Online access fees, regular program. So, and this is for the high school. And why is this a newly budgeted amount, 22,000, when the previous last 2 years budgeted and expended has been between 9,000, 11,000 for both? And I said, see the prior answer. And because basically it's created by one and the expenditures align with the state report. Okay. The next one is, this is the high school new equipment regular program. Why is this 40,000 in the new budget meant to cover? Is there something specific in mind that the funds cover? The specific intent was to fund classroom furniture. The intent was to build a replacement program, replacing old furniture. And it was really intended for Bakey. The next one is ACP incentives. Why is 105,000 budget, yet only 9,000 was spent? In the year before, 105,000 in the budget and 5,700 was spent. What is ACP? Again, ACP incentives is a required line item for our collective bargaining agreement with the professional staff, our teachers. Costs are applied to different areas of the budget rather than being charged here. This is because we are required to report the cost to the Department of Education based upon location, function, and object. The account used here is a district-wide account, is not specific to a location.
But yet there was money that came out of it.
Yeah, there was, in that particular case, what gets actually charged there was appropriate for that particular line item. So say, for example, a teacher gets ACP incentives, and they work at Bakey School, we're gonna charge that cost to Bakey School. So it's not, it doesn't affect, say, the high school. Okay. And this, you're gonna see this distinction throughout the budget for every single year. You're going to see ACP incentives in one line and the expenditures being somewhere else. Okay. Now this one, the next question deals with supplies for math. Why was 42,000 budgeted for math supplies, yet only 10,000 spent? What was purchased and what was not? I know there was an error in the budget last year for math supplies. Was the error not corrected, or did it remain in the budget? And the answer is encumbrances are not reported as actual expenditures in New Hampshire. You'll find we spent considerable funds on math curriculum at year end in preparation of our planned enrollment.
Are you speaking about year end 22?
So what,
I'm just wondering
yes,
which year.
so what happened is we put the order in, I believe in March or April. And the items are actually coming in now. And we have a paper shortage, and what's on the cart right there is what we ordered. And I can't record an expenditure until the goods or the services are delivered. Okay, health insurance waivers. What are these specifically and why the increase? This is an incentive given to employees for not taking the district's health insurance. We cannot gauge how many people will take the option and will fluctuate annually. So say, for example, we have a family on a health insurance that may cost up to $30,000, but they can get like $3,600 as additional pay if they don't take our health insurance. The next line is other professional services for special education. Why do we have such a large amount in the budget for this line item? What does this entail and cover specifically? And how can or will these funds be used if the need arises? Previous budgets were much lower, 10,000. This account mainly holds crisis intervention costs, such as legally required special education training for Crisis Prevention Institute and other services such as Medicaid billing. We have to train due to staff turnover and lack of training during the pandemic. The next question deals with other professional services for special education. What are these specifically, and why is the spending so much larger than the budgeted amounts? Students with IEPs require different levels of service. For example, one student in one school might require support for vision or hearing impaired, while another school has no students with similar needs. Needs are constantly changing and needs increased.
Matt, excuse me. If anybody has a question, like if you don't know what, initials are, like IEP,
Yeah.
feel free to ask, because the district is really good with using lots of initials.
Acronyms. Yeah, so that's an individual education plan, and it's a plan that's for a specific student. And if one is issued, we have to follow it. Okay, the next question deals with, The next question deals with other professional services, again, for special education. Why is the recent budget 71,000 doubled from the previous year's budget 37,000? And the answer is students with IEPs require different levels of service. For example, one student in one school might require support for it. It's basically the same answer from the last question. So, and you have to understand, when we build the budget for special education, we're building it with the students in mind that we have in front of us. That changes when students come in from other districts, and sometimes they move out of district. And then sometimes our current population goes in and out of special education. Okay,
And they go from one school to another, so it can change.
yes, yeah, the money usually follows, if they're in the system the whole time, it follows throughout as they go through the schools. The next one is, it's a question about what are basics, insteps, bridges, and bridges two. What do these terms mean? And these are special education program. Bridges no longer exist. And I want to refer you to the website for the description of these programs. And this is a link. And so if you click on the link, and it's going to bring you to the district's website, and we have a listing of all the special education programs. So there's life skills, skills, home base, zones, connections resource room, connections. And then here are the Bakey programs, Instep 2, basics, basics 2. Okay,
So can I just ask a question?
yes,
So the budget must have had the terminology bridges built into it.
yes. In the line item, it will say bridges, or it will say zones.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, I think, okay.
I wish they called them all the same thing at the different schools.
And that's just on the regular SAU 17 website.
Yes,
Just
it
dig
is.
Around for it a little bit.
yeah, well, I don't know if you're gonna find it easy. It was difficult for me to get it.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure that if you're looking for it, go to this question and click on the hyperlink that I put in the question.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Now, life skills for the high school. Why was this budgeted not spent? Assume it is a position not filled. Do we have a current open ad for this position? The budget's based upon student need at the time the budget was created, which is different than what occurred during the fiscal year. Again, special education costs shift and change throughout the year based upon the needs of the student and their IEP documents.
So life skills is correlated with special education.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything that has in the account code, here, let me highlight it. This one right here.
I know I should know.
Anything that has a 1200 series right here is special education. And they're also sprinkled in some of the 2000 series, but those are very small.
Thank you.
Okay. The next one deals with support staff for zones at the middle school. What is this position exactly, and why did it increase from the budget 24,000 to spent 44,000, now newly budgeted 45,000? And the answer is paraprofessional positions based upon student need. Unfortunately, I can't go any further into detail as it may identify the student. The next one deals with athletic salaries for the middle school. Why is the middle school athletics budget salary so much less than the high school, 40,000 versus 116,000? Not enough student population to field full teams. However, you'll see a reversal with the 6th grade being at the middle school.
So that was budgeted higher for this year.
Find out.
Okay. I can look.
I think this year is going to be a struggle.
To
Okay.
fund it or to fill it.
I don't think that it was when the decision was made to move grades 3 and 6, it was made near the after the
Oh,
budget
yeah.
was built.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And so the money was moved from Memorial to the high school, but the amount of 6th graders coming out for athletics teams far outstrips what we put in there. So
Okay.
it's a good thing. The next one deals with technical services for athletics. Why are these specific? What are these specifically, and what do they cover? These cover traffic control, police, ambulance, timing services, game assistants, assigners, referees, umpires, meet officials, and entry fees. The next one deals with speech salaries for Memorial. Why is this not spent? Assume it's an open position we cannot fill. How are we supporting the students if the position is not filled? And if it's still open, have we considered a contract type position instead? The answer is we try to provide the service in-house if staffing levels are adequate. Otherwise, we contract the service out. Here, we were unable to hire an SLP. This is a speech language pathologist. So we contracted out the service. The position is covered through 2 contractual providers, equivalent to 1 full-time position.
This is what I was talking about during the tour.
Okay.
So Matt, again, just to make sure I'm understanding. When we have the not spent here and you're showing an excess of funds, you have a contracted services that is in a deficit because you spent more there than you originally planned.
Yes. So the key here is this 5-1 series accounts right here. These represent salary accounts. Contracted services, I believe, are 5-3 accounts. And by the way, these object codes, these are nationally recognized standards that corporate business follows. And the codes can get so detailed that you can actually specify the service all the way down to the actual vendor. And if you want to have your chart of accounts that big to do this. The next one is support salaries. What is this exactly? This is the speech language pathologist. The next one is support salaries at the SAU. How many positions does this cover and what positions are they exactly? There are 2 positions within this account, the human resource director and the administrative assistant for both the human resource director and the curriculum director. The next one is the administrative salaries for the SAU. How many positions does this cover and what positions are they exactly? This is the superintendent's salary line item. This one is who gets this travel stipend? Why is it so high? Exactly what does this cover? Expenses or just mileage or both? This particular travel stipend relates to the student service director and is paid per her contract. This employee drives throughout the district and throughout the state for district business. It relates to the cost of mileage on their personal car.
A lot of mileage.
Support staff salaries. Why have we spent more than we budgeted for the last 2 years? And why haven't we increased our budget amount to at least cover the prior year spending? Budgeted 99,000 versus 122,000 spent last year. When developing the budget, we use current employees. Those employees do not necessarily end up in the same position when the school year actually occurs. You'll find this throughout salary lines. As staff move or leave, the salaries may go up or down depending upon the qualifications of the applicant. School administration salaries for Bakey Memorial Middle and High School. If we're under budget for these salaries, as we did last year, where did the additional funding come from? How many school admins do we have at each school and what are their positions? And they say, please see the collective bargaining agreement located here. And so Bakey was at budget because the administration staff 2 was known. Memorial was over budget due to staff final pay, unused accrued time per contract. The middle school 1 has a surplus because the new principal was less than the budget. The high school 6, including the athletic and guidance director, is over budget due to the final pay of several administrators. So this question here deals with supplies for the building administration. Why are we budgeting for 38,000 in supplies for admins when the last 2 years of supplies we've only averaged 8 to 11,000 respectively? What type of supplies are we talking about, and how will the newly budgeted funds be spent? These are supplies for the administration level. Previously, we included some software subscriptions in this line item for budgeting purposes, but paid for them out of the correct account. We're actively realigning the budget with the expenditure for this coming budget cycle. You will see changes in the future budget. So the next one deals with administration dues. What are the dues and why do we need to budget for them? And why are the amounts different? Professional dues for administration staff at the buildings. The amounts differ by the number of administrators in each of the buildings, plus our annual NEASC dues. The NEASC dues become larger as we move through the grades. These are contractually obligated expenses. The next one deals with miscellaneous expense for the administration staff at the buildings. What was this money spent on specifically? And what was the intent of this newly budgeted amount of $12,000? This is not a new budget amount. The funds have been moved to the correct location. This mostly relates to high school graduation. The next one is professional development for travel. Why, if we only budgeted for 3,000, did we end up spending 16,000? Who used this funding, specific positions? What did it cover exactly? What type of development and where did they travel? This is professional development for SAU staff. While the account description covers the cost of transportation, all of the costs this year related to actual class fees. In there are my professional development for my business administrator certificate and for our accountant's business administrator certificate. Also, you'll find the course cost for the superintendent's board required doctoral program.
Are those contractual obligations?
I'm required to have a business administrator certificate. And the school board asked Tom to get his doctorate degree. Okay, the next one is custodians. As I understand, we're down on the number of custodians in our district. Is that correct? Why is the expenditure for salaries more than the budgeted amounts? Is it caused by overtime of non-salary employees? If not, what is the cause? During COVID, there was a huge burden on the daytime custodians. This is because lunches were served throughout the building. They weren't served just in the cafeteria. They were served in the hallways.
That's right.
We shifted resources to Bakey to accommodate the significant need. We have a staffing shortage at Memorial that required overtime to cover. Currently, we're down 4 custodians district-wide.
I did notice after that the overtime for custodial salaries is a different line item.
Yeah,
So that wouldn't actually, this wouldn't contribute. It would be separate.
right. This is custodians for the SAU. Why do we have 1 year of salary, 37,000, then last year at 70,000? Why increase in spending? How many custodians does this cover? Are they specifically assigned to the SAU building? What is being, with this being a rented space, I would assume their responsibility is less than other properties that we own and have to maintain. For state reporting purposes, employees charged to the SAU are allocated to all school locations based upon the student's average daily membership. The employee being charged here has, additionally, there's an employee being charged here that has an office in the building, but works for the entire district. This person is the facilities and safety manager. This position is a significant savings because we reduce an administrator, a facility director's position when we reorganize the district. The next one is maintenance service for the old high school campus. What does this cover and what specific buildings, areas, etc.? This relates to the seminary property as a whole, which you will see a decrease in the future budget. What you'll find in this account relates to fire suppression pump tests, water treatment, and alarm costs.
Is it a decrease or an elimination?
Yeah, we sold the building, so
That's
we
what I
don't,
mean. So it'll
it's-
be an elimination.
Well, the account's still gonna be there because we have Bakey, but we're not gonna be doing pump tests because we don't own that pump anymore.
Right. Okay.
But some of Bakey ties still into the old high school? Is that what you're saying?
No, Bakey's on a different system.
Don't we pay for all the tie-ins to Swayze though?
We pay for a portion of the cost of the fire suppression with Swayze, yes.
So it won't empty out to zero. It'll be,
Well, that's if Jim Berg charges us for that. Okay. This deals with rental equipment memorial in the high school. What equipment rental does this cover for each school and what is it being used for? Have we looked at purchasing instead? A majority of the cost relates to the black exterior wall on the high school and memorial school. These black walls heat the air prior to being ingested by the HVAC system. Other costs found here relate to trash container rentals. Do you know what I mean by the black walls? If you stand out here on the street, the side that's facing the street is black. It looks like an architectural feature. It was added to the building after the building was built to try to reduce the energy costs.
So that's a rental though?
We pay a lease payment, and we've been paying a lease payment on that since I think 2012.
Is it a lease to own or just a?
It's a lease to own.
Do you know when?
I
that'll be
hope.
up? Yeah.
I don't want to see it being taken off the building.
Just to follow up on Vanessa's question, when does the lease to own turn into ownership?
This is the last year, as far as I know.
This is the last year.
And I did call its key bank that I called to verify that. Now, the next question deals with property insurance for the old high school campus. Is the old high school campus has been privately purchased? Why do we need to continue our insurance for the property when it's no longer in use? And the answer is we have a lease agreement with a new owner for Swayze Gym, tech office, and the grounds building. The tech office and grounds building will be coming off our insurance soon. So just so that you can see, I'm going to give you the all the properties that are being covered by our insurance company, and you'll see that the seminary is not included on it. The next one deals with electricity at the old high school campus, bottled gas at the old high school campus. Why do we need to budget for electricity at the old high school campus when it's no longer ours nor in use? And the answer is we still use Swayze Gym. Why do we need to budget for bottled gas at the old campus when it's no longer in use? And that's being used to heat Swayze Gym. And you have to remember for the budget, we had to budget running the buildings, not knowing when or if Chimberg was going to sell. The next one deals with electricity. Have we looked into solar to help offset the electricity costs? And the answer is the town of Kingston is actively looking at a solar project that includes the school district, but the Kingston properties only. They meet the third Thursday of every month. So if you're interested in that project, that's when they meet.
Thank you.
The next one deals with capital improvements for DJ Bakey. What capital improvements were made with this money? This represents a portion of the Bakey boilers that was paid in fiscal year 22. Other purchase services. What does this cover exactly? Is it for people or positions? If yes, what are they? We have to budget for contracted services for food service. This amount covers positions and products related to their service. Know that during COVID, meals were free to all students. Costs related to the program were over $1 million, which we received federal funds and federal and state funds to offset this cost. For budget purposes, these costs do not affect the tax rate. The costs are normally covered by state and federal grants as well as meal sales. Okay.
So when we say our budget is 38 million, we're not including this number?
No, we're including, the budget includes really 3 different activities. The first one is the operating fund, which is the general fund. The next one is school food service, which is what this is talking about. School food service is offset by charges of the meal charges and state and federal grants offset that program. We rarely pay into that fund using taxation. Okay. And then the next one that's going to be in the budget is going to be federal and state grants such as Title I, Title II, and IDEA. They're essentially the title grants. So in that case, it's going to be federal revenue offsetting federal expenditures. Okay. I know it's confusing. Anticipated federal projects. What is this exactly? What does it cover? And why is it so over budget? And how was the overage funded? We budget for federal title grants, Title I, Title II, IDEA. We receive and spend funds beyond the title grants that are represented in the amount, and the school board held public hearings to receive and spend those funds, ESSER COVID monies. Okay. For budgeting purposes, we included the title grants as a single number. We receive federal funds to offset these amounts. These grants increase and decrease annually, which can increase the overall budget, but the amounts do not impact the tax rate. The next one is athletics. I'd like a breakdown of athletics. How much money each sport is budgeted to receive in the future budget, and how were these funds spent in last year's? Breakdowns of the funds, i.e. equipment, rental, supplies, dues, coaches, uniform, transportation, etc., and per each sport. And I'm saying here, we don't have that broken down. I think you're going to find later one of the other questions asks the same thing, and I got it and we stuck it in there. Okay. How many people are employed within the district, are responsible for facilities, and what are their salaries? Do they receive any stipends or additional payments? There are 22 full-time equivalent positions, not including the business administrator. Of these positions, 4 are not currently filled. Custodians who work evening shifts receives a shift differential of 50 cents per hour. Their salaries are posted on the BudCom Google Drive. So I uploaded all the salaries for the whole district in their Google Drive. And I'm going to be updating that again shortly. The next one deals with the SAU office. What is the cost of rental for the SAU offices? How many people work within SAU building? So the cost rental are as follows. Fiscal year 23 is 81,000. Fiscal year 24 is 84,600. Fiscal year 25 is $87,552. Fiscal year 26 is $90,612. Fiscal year 27 is $93,780. And currently there are 22 employees at the SAU.
I'm assuming that last year is the last year of the lease. The 2027, right? Is that-
2027 is the last year of the lease.
okay, just-
Okay. Electric car charging station at the SAU office. That's me. What is the cost of the electric car charging station at the SAU office, and how was it funded? The cost is $0. There's no actual charging station at the SAU. There's an outside outlet installed per a contract negotiation, and the electricity usage does not change the terms of the lease agreement, because electricity is tied into the cost of the lease agreement. Because of contract negotiations, we saved almost $1,500 per year on the salary of the employee who requested the outlet.
Thanks for the saving, Matt.
Can we get you a number more of those outlets?
You know, before that, it was costing me almost $9,000 a year in gas. So
Yeah, you're paying.
Who's paying the electric bill?
the owner of the building,
Oh,
that's not us.
great.
Let's see. Have all the positions for intervention been filled? How many positions are the total? How many are funded? How many are unfilled? What are the total amounts for these positions? Oh, I didn't answer that. I'm gonna have to update that. I'm super sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
You might have figured you couldn't read it.
All the positions are on that Google Drive, by the way. Everything is in there. Okay. Other professional services for legal services. What are the details of the legal services supplied? Can this be avoided in the future? The answer is no. We're able to keep school open with these fees. These fees are unusually high during the pandemic and should decrease over time. What did they cover? Union negotiations, special education, personal matters, student issues, parent issues, and vary from year to year. Why have they been so much higher than the last 2 years than what we budgeted for? 117,000 versus 30, 91,000 to 50. And I said, see the answers above. And really, it kept school open.
Yeah, it's pretty high. Over budget, you know what I mean? 30 to,
The numbers started going up before 19 or before 20 for sure. If you look at the trend from the few years before that, it wasn't like it was and just jumped. It was sky high and just went higher.
yeah. It just seems like we're not budgeting for it properly if it's that outside of the budget range.
Okay. All right. Here's the listing, by the way.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And this is athletics. Dr. Dawson, in discussing sports, said participation is running about 40% of enrollment. A few years ago, an audit of athletics was planned and then COVID intervened. Please give from fiscal year 2022 the number of participants in each sport and the cost per pupil of that sport with a breakdown for coaching's uniforms and equipment and other personnel and transportation for the high and middle school. Please contrast the 3 years ago prior to the pandemic. What indication do you have about students participating this year, if any? And they said the information is below. I'm not going to go into detail of this. Okay. During the fiscal year, we had difficulties obtaining transportation for many of these teams. As a result, we used coach buses more than normal.
A quick follow-up. Is there higher participation in sports now that COVID is kind of ending, or
Yes,
good to hear?
yes, especially in 6th grade.
So just regarding, I don't know if you mind if I ask, but I know that there was a proposed student, proposed van put into the budget for this year that wasn't approved. Are we going to expect to see the additional busing costs? I know like they didn't have a game recently because they couldn't get the students there. So I know it's an ongoing issue.
Yes, the problem with the van right now is actually trying to get a van because you have to understand that the federal regulations really regulate the size of the vehicle from 11 to 15 passengers. And a lot of the vans are 15 passenger vans, and they have to have like flashing lights and a lot of other things. So I'm trying to get them down under 11. So trying to find the vans that fit that criteria has been difficult.
I just like to follow up on the comment about especially 6th grade after COVID. I'm not sure if it's because of COVID. It's probably just more because 6th grade's now middle school again, and there's a lot more opportunities for
Yes,
grade middle school athletics.
yes, it's exactly that.
Well, the old rules banned it, right? If they weren't in the middle school.
You couldn't play I believe you couldn't play middle school sports as an elementary school 6th grader.
Right.
Right.
Yes. Okay, the next question deals with staffing credits and debits in year-end unexpended funds for fiscal year 22. What is the current status of staffing in the district? What's the impact on learning? How do we address these needs, including funding sources? We continue to have staffing shortages. Surprisingly, we're better off than other districts. We are addressing the needs by trying to make the district an inviting place to work. Most of our staffing shortages, similar to other areas in the other area districts, are in custodial services, paraprofessional staff, special education, and substitutes. Addressing the need, the superintendent, HR, and administration are actively listening to employees and making adjustments based upon feedback. I attribute their efforts to the district being better off than other similarly situated districts. It's all about relationships. The next one deals with substitutes. Much was spent over budget in fiscal year 22. Please explain the reasons, how being addressed, biggest needs and current status. Please describe use of substitutes on student learning. Please discuss rumor that the biggest need days for substitutes are Monday and Friday. Does this continue, and how is it being addressed if so? The line item noted in the question relates to salaries, where the anticipated staff needs up to 18 months prior to actual expenditure is different than where the need actually occurred. We're able to shift resources to meet the greatest need. Staff are employed under collective bargaining agreement. Administration has no control over the use of contractual, obligated, sick, and personal time.
Matt, this was my question. I obviously cited the wrong budget code on that. However, if you could please address the question on the substitutes, even if I had the wrong budget code there, that would be really helpful. If you want that to be a follow-up question, I'm happy to do that.
Oh, on the use of substitutes on student learning?
Yeah,
Yeah, you can put that in as a follow-up question.
okay, thank you.
Books. Why was 38,623 unexpended year end? What changed in book needs, supplies, or teaching goals and methodology? What impact on student learning? Much of the unexpended funds related to the timing of approval of curriculum changes, particularly math, which occurred late in the fiscal year, and delivery of the items is delayed by paper shortages. You know, it's right here. It's sitting right there on the cart.
So is this part of the encumbrances that went on at your end?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So like impact on student learning. I think that the company sent us some temporary textbooks to use in the meantime. The next one deals with books for math and English. Why a year-end encumbrance of 13,000? What is the status now? What's the impact on student learning? A total of all encumbrances for line items given was $127,299. $106,973 related to the new math curriculum approved by the school board. We received many of these items near the end of the school year and throughout the summer, and we continue to receive the items now. The impact on student learning is now where we've begun to teach under the new curriculum. The next one deals with district support staff. What changed? What is the current status? What's the impact on student learning and operations? One employee was moved to this line item for better state reporting. The appropriation was not moved because the budget was not developed in the accounting system during the year the system was implemented. Going forward, moving the appropriation will be far better as the positions are detailed in the budget. So you have to understand the payroll was built out of one system and keyed into another system. It's been put into the system as a single number. The next one deals with tech supplies and equipment. Why were funds unexpended at year end? What changed? What's the impact on student learning? And what's the current status? This line item relates to Chromebook repairs. We're required to appropriate funds repairs separately from the revenue received. At the last district meeting, the voters approved an insurance program for parents to participate. For parents who do not participate, the cost will still continue to come out of these line items. You'll be seeing this request going forward. So, but to Jamie's point, there'll be a revenue to offset the cost. Bakey speech pathologists. After a lot of discussion a couple of years ago about the impact on student learning of speech pathologists, why the unexpended funds, what's the current status, what, if any, impact on student learning? From Jody Gutterman. The budget is built based upon student need at the time the budget is built. And for me, The needs change as we enter actual service. If we can't find a speech pathologist, we have to hire a contracted service that comes out of a different part of the budget. This one deals with tuition reimbursement. What is this for? Why lower spending than budget? Was some shifted to other line items? What is the current status? What impact on student learning does tuition reimbursement have? This is a collective bargaining agreement contractual item. Past history suggests all the line item is used. However, it was not used much during COVID. I expect this line item will be fully expended in the near future. Info access fees. Why are fees unexpended at year end? There was an audit of these services a few years ago. Is there ongoing usage audit and revisions of what is needed? What is the current status? What is the impact to student learning? The answer is better tracking of online resources. Despite this year's budget cycle, you'll find online resources are going to be more aligned with the approved and written curriculum. The next one deals with auditing and legal fees. For both actual spending far exceeded budget amounts, 28,000, 91,000 respectively. Why? What is the current status? Is there a way to avoid these expense increases in the current and coming years? What is the impact on student learning? Fees increase as a result of union negotiations, COVID-related issues, and special education. These fees avoided larger costs that kept the buildings open. Support staff district.
Sorry.
Why the lower than budgeted expenditure? What's the current budget? What's the impact on student learning and district operations? These are costs related to employee contracts due to negotiations. Additionally, there were unfilled positions that have been subsequently filled. Student Services Director. What is this position? Why did it cost? Why did the cost increase? What is the current status? What's the impact on learning? This is the Special Education Administration budget. There were retirements and related hiring. So there's really no impact on education. Professional development, PD travel. Why were there unexpended funds for professional development? What is the current status? Please advise total budget for all professional development, noting the portion that is mandated by the collective bargaining agreement. Please detail professional development program for each of the past 3 years, including the current year. Please indicate how effectiveness of these tax dollars are being measured. We've had difficulties procuring professional development during COVID. We will be spending this line item more once professional development continues to move forward to pre-pandemic levels. Custodial salaries. Why is this overspending? What impact on facility maintenance? No temps used, so budgeted savings possibly reallocated to this. Please comment. Where is this? What is the status of the custodial staff? Mostly overtime to cover lack of finding staff. We can't even find temps. We are currently evaluating alternative opportunities.
But again, there was a separate line item for overtime for custodial. So why is that the detail of this question? Is there overtime being paid out of the standard salaries as well? So, because there were 2 lines.
Mike, that's what I was gonna ask also, but
Yeah.
my belief is the regular time part of overtime's time and a half. The regular time goes in salary and the halftime goes in overtime. Is that correct, Matt?
Mhm. It's really going to be related to that Bakey issue where we're going to have to bring people down. And we also had some custodial contracted services in years past that we put into the salary line item.
I didn't follow. Do we break out the custodial lines per building, or is that one line?
Well, the problem with the question is this 2,600 relates to facilities as a whole. It includes electricity, heating oil. So it's not, I can't put my finger on the actual account specifically.
But that falls under custodial salaries though, as opposed to the,
You see this budget code right here?
yeah.
Yeah, I know it says custodial salaries, but it's looking at all the salaries for all the buildings, including even like the overtime. It's not like I can focus in on a specific account because you're looking at the blob. Do you see what I'm saying?
So what I should have had is 2600 dash and then custodial number. and
Exactly.
then Left that generic without allocating
Yes,
to whether
it's
it was,
far
Okay.
easier to answer.
okay.
Okay.
Because you wrote down the amount that you were talking about. It's
Yeah,
just-
I added it all up and stuff. I just didn't put the whole code in it enough to give Matt the reference.
I think it was pretty consistent throughout though, that the custodial services were over. And if what Jamie's saying is across all the buildings. So what Jamie's saying is overtime is only that halftime.
I'm asking that, I'm not saying.
Sorry.
That was my question.
So I guess that would be a follow-up, right?
I think that's gonna be the answer, but I don't know.
Okay.
All right, maintenance services. Why are these funds encumbered? Please give details of planned contracted expenses. All encumbrances related to contracts or purchases that occurred prior to year end. For example, voters approved appropriation for a lease for a new truck that was okayed by the school board last fall. The truck still has not arrived as of this writing, still hasn't arrived today. An example of planned expenditures are as follows, and I put the truck at 48,000, trailers at 29,000. Bleacher inspection, we have to have all of our bleachers in the district inspected and repairs were made. We have to have all of our gymnasium equipment inspected and repaired. We had a pump fail at the middle school, high school out behind the building here. That was $4,900. We had to reline the septic lines underneath Bakey, which is 59,000. They put in like a PVC lining in the pipes. We replaced the septic pumps at Bakey. This is pumping the effluent out of the tank, holding tanks into the leach field for 36,000. We had the Bakey cameras where the system had failed that we had to replace. And there was actually an event that occurred out on the playground that we didn't have video for. We have a water system preventative maintenance for $9,000. When you went on the tour, you saw like the wellhead is in the middle of Bakey. Let's see, actual annual gym floor maintenance. When we went through Swayze, you saw the floor there had been maintained. Generator annual preventative maintenance. So we have 2 generators in the district. There's one over at Bakey and there's one here at the high school.
Why are we encumbering funds for stuff that happens?
Because the service,
Able to have people come out and do these inspections?
because the service was ordered and they hadn't actually done the service before year ended.
So this happen every year?
This was unusual. This is no, the encumbrances are unusually high this year just because things were
And I get that. That's why.
okay. If you look at last year, it was like 400,000, and I think the year before was like 150. So this is an unusual year.
Okay.
How
Yes.
long can you hold the encumbrance for a truck? If we was supposed to purchase it last year, and it hasn't got here by October, how long does that stay open?
It stays open until the truck comes in. So basically what happens is the money's budgeted in one fiscal year, and under the non-lapsing statute, I can roll over that budgeted funds to follow the purchase, okay, until the purchase occurs. Because the truck isn't budgeted in the current fiscal year, but it's budgeted in last fiscal year.
Was it budgeted as a separate line item or was it budgeted as part of the school budget?
It's budgeted as part of the school budget in multiple line items related to each of the buildings.
So just for conversation, if that truck doesn't arrive until 2023 or 2024, we can still spend 2022 money to buy it?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
How are they withholding that price for you over the course of these years?
We're
Yeah,
going to find out.
all right.
Well, theoretically, you got a purchase order, right? They got a
That's
legal
right.
obligation to honor that
Yes.
price.
It's probably why the truck hasn't
Theoretically.
showed up yet.
Okay. We bought this truck under a state bid,
Okay.
okay? With a contract.
Wonder they can't find it.
Probably sold it to somebody who's paying more money.
Exactly right.
Sorry? Yeah, I have the VIN now.
Oh, that's,
Yeah,
that's good. That's
I-
good. Then
I
you
have a
got the VIN,
feeling
then that's fine.
they were taking our allocation and giving it to other
Yeah.
communities, and they were servicing all the school districts last.
Yeah. But you have a VIN, so that means you have a vehicle.
That's right. It's just not built yet. Okay, the next one deals with property insurance. In the past year or so, there was a discussion of a need to revalue the district properties for insurance needs. Has this been done? And if not, when? If done, what are the results and the impact on insurance rates? The seminary property was revalued per school budget committee request in 2019, which reduced our invoice by about $1,800. I don't recall the exact amount. Since then, Primex has gone through their normal periodic reevaluation of the district. Since we're in the pool with other municipalities in the district, any update to our value changes the percent of the share of our share of the pool's claims and liabilities. Do you understand that?
Yep.
Okay. The next one deals with baking maintenance. What need was identified? What is the bidding process? Please give contract details for the encumbrance and what's the impact on student learnings. There are two parts to this question. The first part is actual costs and the second is encumbrance. As for actual cost, there were a lot of repairs at Bakey this year. Nearly all the repairs were performed with existing vendors except for one. We were facing a need to replace the curtain in the cafetorium, which we thought was going to be a huge expense. We had a vendor in the building that gave us a quote for another job. They could fix it for $530. We jumped on it. They repaired it. As for encumbrances, the sewer pipelining project for $59,750, which we could not find any other companies to perform this unusual repair. It is an unusual where they had to squeeze PVC into the cracks in the pipes. Without this repair, we were looking at jackhammering up the entire sewer system under the building. They saved us the cost of removing a large part of the basement. This was a significant savings for the district. The impact for all these expenditures would be the difference of keeping the building open or closing it. The next one deals with utilities. What's the status of utility cost bids and contracts? The requested budget amounts for utilities was reduced from the initial presentation from the superintendent with assurances to the budget committee and public that the funds would be adequate. But now it appears that the cost increases are more than anticipated. Is this the case? It appears it was an error to reduce the budgeted utility amount, and the appearance is that it was done in order to keep the proposed operating budget below the default. If so, we need to avoid this lack of transparency in the future, in my opinion. Please clarify the administration's thinking on their requested budget amount versus needs now, and how will this be avoided in the future? To fund a reserve and immediately invade is not transparent budgeting, in my opinion. This year's budget was built with an anticipated $3 per gallon for heating oil. The price 2 years ago was $1.55 for 40,000 gallons. Last year's was $2.19 a gallon, which is when the current year's budget was built. Normally I buy about 80,000 gallons. When COVID hit, the price of oil dropped drastically, and I did a quick buy and bought at $1.55. We agreed, which I fully support, to create a capital reserve fund for $75,000 and reduce the line items to be more in line with the cost at the time the budget was created. Fast forward today, the price of heating oil is $3.77, which is a 71.8% increase. At the time, $3 was an unreasonable or a large amount to put into a budget. We couldn't foresee 377. Since we purchase heating oil on an annual basis at the best prices, and the best prices are in July, we'll face the same issue if the default budget's approved. Because of how we purchase heating oil, the capital reserve fund is the best mechanism we have to smooth the tax rate over several years. There should be no concern about dipping into the reserve. Rather, the idea is to fund the operating budget at a lower amount and cushion any unusual increases with the reserve. Then we should replenish the reserve in the following budget cycle.
On that line, I guess I'm just gonna ask, electricity is obviously gonna be under budgeted this year for you guys as well, if I had to guess.
My guess right now, electricity is probably going to be just over. Okay. The prices are starting to come in, and because our contract ends in November, we were paying 7.1 cents per kilowatt hour for the production, not the delivery. And the lowest cost right now is like 13 cents a kilowatt hour.
Same thing, though, you're gonna use the capital reserve to offset if it goes that way, or?
Not necessarily. The school board has directed us to try to live within the boundary of the operating budget,
Keep the lights on though.
but without dipping into the capital reserve fund. And we're going to try to make it work. The next one is new equipment. What is this unbudgeted new equipment encumbrance and why? What plans are in place to avoid unanticipated new equipment that is not budgeted? This is a budgeted and expected purchase. It relates to the purchase of a new facilities truck. It looks funny because Ford required us to issue a PO. We ordered this truck in the fall of 21 and has not yet been built.
Is that the one you just got the VIN number for?
Yes.
Okay.
New equipment, not budgeted, now encumbered. What is it for? Why is it not budgeted? How can this be avoided? This purchase relates to 2 enclosed trailers for grounds equipment. It relates to moving out of the grounds building at the seminary property because Chimberg is preparing to demolish those buildings. We were asked to give up these buildings as soon as possible so that the new owner can develop that site first. We looked at trailers as improved efficiency rather than drive across the 2 towns to pick up equipment. The equipment is pulled with the employee, similar to a commercial operation. This problem is not avoidable. We have to move the equipment around the district. And by the way, they are finding that pulling their equipment around the district, they should have done that years ago. The next one is student transportation. Please explain why these funds are not expended. What is the current status of student transportation vacancy rate by the schools, ride length contracts? Since funding transportation is not mandatory in high school, have there been options to explore alternatives, ride share, fees based, why or why not? For the 2700 series accounts, because if you look at the budget code, there's 2 different series up there. We had reduced activity related to not being able to provide full service due to the lack of bus drivers. The routes for grades 9 through 12 are the same routes for grades 6 through 8. There's no cost savings to drop access for 9 through 12. Any student transportation must conform with the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, their regulations, which ride shares may or may not comply. Ride shares may also increase our property liability exposure and increase premiums because the service is not widely used for public schools. The 27-22 series accounts relate to special education transportation. We went out to bid for transportation services last spring and selected 2 companies that were approved by the school board before the summer break. The buses run for 6 through 8 and, oh, wait a minute. That's a doodle on the bottom that should be deleted.
You're not required by RSA to have enough seats on the bus for every student in school?
We're required to provide transportation for K through 8.
Speaking of which, how How utilized are the buses now? Because I remember when there was a traffic situation coming into the middle school, high school arena at the beginning of the year, one of the conjectures were that's because there's a lot of sixth graders now taking private transportation in rather than buses. Are we still seeing fairly empty buses?
Yes.
Have we surveyed the district to ask why?
No, but I mean, that would be a good question to know. But we still have to provide the transportation.
Yeah, it doesn't, if it's, you still have to do it through 628 by law or whatever, you have to have. Whether the bus has one kid on it or it's full, doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
But theoretically, if you have empty buses, you can get smaller buses.
Yeah.
But you could have
Then you get a spike of kids that all of a sudden show up.
happen, you have a spike of kids, or you find out that everybody's getting smaller buses and you've seen it, parents revolt and send all their kids on the bus, and now the bus is leaving kids at the bus stop and they're yelling at the school board for doing it, right? So that's the other part of it.
And the other thing
Balance.
is you could combine routes and have the kids drive for an hour. That's also not
Well, that's the
acceptable.
problem right
Yeah,
now. That's why the
that's-
bus rides are so empty, because some kids are on the bus for 40 minutes or whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but
And kids are going, younger kids have to go to different streets to grab the bus.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Just
two
so you
different
know,
routes. Okay.
if we're going to go to smaller buses, and I have thought about that as an option, it takes a long time to get these buses.
Yep.
They put in the order in January. We don't have any new buses yet. Okay, the next one deals with this is the budget code 2724, which is homeless transportation. Not having used any of these funds seems like a very good thing. What is the district's homeless status? Homeless transportation is a federal requirement under the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act. We have to budget for it whether we use it or not. For the last couple of years, our costs were almost non-existent. However, this year, our costs will be huge. At this point in time, we have a single example that may push the homeless transportation lines into a deficit.
Oh, that's sad.
What's the amount again, Matt?
I think that particular transportation is going to cost almost $54,000 a year.
Wow.
what does it do?
So,
What, I guess you're saying homeless transportation. What is it though?
okay, so basically, here's I'm going to give you a scenario. Okay, so welfare in New Hampshire is primarily doled out by the local community. You can go to your town hall, ask for your welfare director.
Sure.
You can ask for your welfare director to put you up in a hotel. Okay, if they can't find a hotel in the local community, they're going to stick you in the nearest hotel, like Manchester.
Sure.
Because of McKinney-Vento, we have to send a school bus to Manchester to pick up that kid and bring them back here to the district.
And is the district, you said it's gonna be in a deficit this year for sure, or whatever. You're sending a whole bus?
We have
Or
to,
you're sending like a Safeway van or something like?
yeah, like a Safeway van.
Okay.
But the problem is, we're having problems trying to even get the transportation.
I'm sure.
So we're trying to negotiate with the transportation companies in the Manchester area and the schools out there to try to transport them this way.
Are you allowed to privately transport them? If you bought a van, could you dual use for homeless transportation and for sports or no?
Yes, if we could get it.
May not be able to get the van.
Ding, ding.
He's got a VIN number.
We can just pass that along. Here's the VIN number.
Okay, unexpended insurance, the amount of unexpended insurance, about 13% of the total budget amount. In this area for some budget cutting, is this an area for some budget cutting? What percent of our staff is one person, two person, or on family plans? All right, this is a big question. Health insurance is an estimate made as much as 18 months prior to the actual expenditures. We do not know the premium amounts prior to setting the budget. These premiums can vary dramatically, and we've been fortunate in recent years. There are two primary factors that influence health insurance expenditures: The first one is employee elections. If a single employee gets married, the cost goes up. If they have children, the cost goes up more.
Of course it goes down.
And so the insurance companies bill the district monthly using the following rates. We modify the amounts by any returns from the insurance pool, if any. So basically, we're an insurance pool. We share the liabilities of all the other districts in that pool. If there's a surplus, it's returned back to us. The rate of the bargaining groups, professional staff is at 88%, support staff is at 86%, non-union support staff is at 90%, administrator Teamsters is at 89%, and the rest by contract. And so I've given you, this is the annual rate, because then you have to apply the union's rate to that annual rate. So the lowest here is the orange plan at just over 9,000, and the most expensive is the yellow with choice at 32,000, almost 33. So the
I just want to say that I did some investigating recently, and Sanborn is very generous with our insurance coverage, very generous. The districts, Spot looked at some districts, but I looked at 50% for paraprofessionals of coverage, single plan only, not family plans. Most of the districts were about 80% for professional staff that I looked at. That doesn't mean that there was a, conclusive kind of thing of looking at everybody. One I looked at was 93%. So, there are a couple that are better, but we're very generous with our insurance coverage.
I guess.
I would say that's a good thing, obviously, that we're that generous. I know that there's always talks about like the teacher pay and all that, and I think having the super high percentage of health insurance paid maybe helps offset that at least somewhat.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I do too. I think it has to be looked at as a package because they're all part of what they're getting. And in our salaried instances, if you do the same type of comparison, Annie was just mentioning on insurance, you'll find in similar districts that we have lower opening salaries, but better benefits. So what is the right mix of the two, I guess is always the question.
So does that say how many people within the district use the insurance? Like, so,
no.
okay. How many people need it?
Oh, yes. What?
Okay, so the second part of the question says is the cost for insurance increases from year to year. Some years the increase is minimal, while other years it's over 10%. What I observed during COVID was a reduction in the uses of health insurance as a whole. I've seen the amount given back, the surplus that's returned to us decline over the past year, which I expect to see significant increases going forward. So the refund that we get from the insurance company was huge during COVID. It is now starting to become minimal again. The next one is year-end use of funds. Please list all unbudgeted year-end spending and source of funds, including year-end unexpended funds. Please detail unexpended funds distribution for each of the past 5 years. And so now, what I say, okay, state law does not allow the district to expend funds above the appropriation approved by the voters. However, there are exceptions, meaning that the school board can spend up to the total budget plus unanticipated funds approved by the school board at a public meeting, such as donations and grants. I just want to give you the scope of the power of the district in its spending. All of the following funds have been approved by the school board at a public meeting, and I'm listing them out. $500 for Alliance Energy to grant fund a STEM program. $21,000 for school store receipts for classroom supplies. These are additional funds above the appropriation. Okay. $34,891 for seminary trustees for various education related projects. $4,800 for the Bakey boosters for AC units, $273 from Unitil to support programs in general. They also provide an electricity awareness education program for Bakey. 15,000 for Sanborn Youth Football and cheerleading organization for the lacrosse program or a lacrosse program. 10,000 from the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation for High School Career Pathways Partnership. Lumber from East Coast Lumber for the Life Skills Greenhouse out back. 5,500 from a local group of parents for the purchase of an automated basketball shooting machine. $18,005.86 from the state for our continued operations of food service during COVID. And that grant from the state essentially covered the deficit of operations for that fiscal year. The school board also voted to add basketball court and a Gaga pit for the middle school and resurface of the track and technology and lighting upgrades for the auditorium and Wi-Fi upgrades.
Oh, Matt, that last sentence that you have there, that was with unexpended funds at year end? Those approvals from the school board or?
Well,
what was the source of
you
that?
have to be very careful in what you claim as unexpended funds. So like, if the funds that are listed down below that got returned back to taxpayers, that's technically the unexpended funds. Okay. We have no authority of spending those funds. Okay. So anything that was voted, like the basketball court, the Gaga pit, and the wireless upgrades, that was all done before year end within the general fund appropriation.
Okay. Typically, when you do your encumbrances month by month, you've got an amount that's not apportioned to anything yet.
Yeah.
So out of that unapportioned amount at year end, part of it gets returned to the taxpayers. And then part of it got spent on these items that you mentioned, like the auditorium and so forth.
Yeah. I don't see it that way, but
It
okay.
doesn't matter. If you can understand my thinking on it, what I'm wondering is how much of that money that was quote left over, whatever's the correct accounting term, was spent at the year end by the school board. And were there other sources of money? Did it come out of revolving funds or so forth?
You're trying to say that the encumbrances were not necessary spending
I'm not
and could
making
get
a
returned back
judgment.
to?
I'm not making a
No,
judgment,
but I mean,
I'm asking for information.
yeah, no, but you have to look at what you're asking. If it was a legal expenditure or it could have gotten returned back to the taxpayers.
No,
Okay.
I'm not asking if it was legal or not. I'm asking
Okay.
what it was. That's all I'm asking is what it was.
You
There
wanna
was
know the surplus
Roughly,
number?
say there was $3 million that was left on June 15th. And the school board spent a portion of that and a portion of that they gave back to the taxpayers. What I'm wondering is how much of that money that was not expended in June was then spent by the school board in year-end spending for these items that you've delineated.
You've listed the cost. Wouldn't it just be those costs plus the money that was returned? Isn't that the?
No.
It would be, yeah, how much was the basketball
Bill it.
court? How much was the guy got?
They didn't
So-
get-
And was it all sourced from budget money?
So what Matt has listed above, Ken, is money that you could spend over the appropriation because grants, cash came in over and above that wasn't from taxpayers. That's
Yes.
what's listed above. What Annie's asking is all these other things, was that part of the general fund or was it funded something else? So in order to get to unexpended funds, it's whatever's not spent in the general fund.
Mhm.
So if you look at the Wi-Fi upgrades, they were approximately $90,000. The Wi-Fi upgrades were paid for out of the revolving fund. So they did not come out of the general fund. They came out of the capital improvement revolving fund, of which gets funded by the
SLC rent.
Rent.
SLC rentals.
Right.
The track surface, the auditorium, the
Basketball.
middle school basketball court, the Gaga pits, those all came out of general funds at the end of the year.
Okay.
So had the board decided not to do that, those would have rolled into and become unexpended funds. But since the board chose to spend that money, it wasn't unexpended funds, it was expended funds. So they did not go back. But the Wi-Fi was about 90,000. And on that list, that's the one that came out of the revolving fund and was not out of the general accounts.
That's
Okay.
correct.
So the question just, is going to come back to you. How much is the total out of that? Because that was part of the question.
Well,
I'd like to get an answer.
So,
okay, we're listing out these projects in another answer.
Okay.
okay.
So funds returned to taxpayers as follows, because I was asked to provide the last 5 years. So let's start from newest to oldest. This most recent past year was 1,175,000. The year before that, which is fiscal year 21, was 2,282,000. Fiscal year 20 was 2,305,000. Fiscal year 19 was 913,000, and fiscal year 18 was 1,504,000.
Matt, do you know offhand when the school board started holding back the 2.5% that they're allowed to hold back?
I think we did it in,
2020.
I think it was 1920 was the
I think it was
first year.
1920. Yeah.
Yeah. So out of all that big COVID money, the unexpended money because of COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That year in 1920, I do have to say that I was in March, I was faced with news from each of the member towns and Fremont School District that they may not have the cash flow necessary to pay the remaining assessment payments. So at that time, I looked at the bank accounts and said, okay, do I have enough money to meet payroll, which I did. We froze absolutely all spending. Okay. Subsequently, the money came in from all the member towns, which generated this large surplus. And then the following year, we had difficulties hiring people. Okay. The next one, reserve funds and grants. Please list all reserve funds. Oh, and I didn't do it. Please list all reserve funds with the total amounts of the funds, source of funds, the amount spent, used for the past 5 years, including ESSER funds and other grants, how much and how expended. Please describe the new RSA governing emergency reserves, including the BudCom role, if any, potential use of those funds. So Annie, trying to get 5 years worth of detail when in New Hampshire, you have to understand in New Hampshire accounting, everything's kind of broken up into silos. The funds that are held by the trustees of trust funds, you will find people do not record that money in the general ledger like we do now. Okay. But before my time, that information is not recorded in the general ledger. It's difficult, very difficult for me to generate 5 years worth of activity. Okay. I want to talk about the new RSA governing emergency reserves. So under the contingency fund, which the school board can retain up to 2.5% of the unexpended funds of the district at year end. And previously, if the district wanted to expend the money, it had to be for an emergency. I mean, like an emergency. Okay. And this district would need approval of the budget committee, the school board, the Department of Education, and the Department of Revenue Administration. Okay. The law has now changed. Basically, the school board can expend the funds with just a public hearing.
They don't need to approve it anymore. Because before the state had to approve and you needed a public hearing.
Yes,
Now you just have to have a public hearing.
that's right. Crazy.
And the budget committee doesn't have a role anymore.
Yeah.
Correct.
So in your BudCom financial information directory is the monthly reports. Here, let me switch to this. And no, let me not do that on. But anyways, all of the reserve funds are listed in each of the monthly categories. I provide that to the finance committee and the facilities committee. Okay. And right now with all of our reserves, including the contingency fund, it's about $1.4 to $1.5 million in reserves.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So I'll have to do some follow-up on that one. Please advise the status. This is on intervention. Please advise the status of use of intervention budget and what's being done for intervention at each of the schools the past 3 years, including the current year, understanding that the hiring of paras has been difficult. How is intervention working? What, if any, evidence is there that intervention is effective? What measurements are in place for intervention impact for student learning? The intervention team has been hired, but we've had to combine paras to create teaching positions. We couldn't find enough paras. For the last 2 years, the intervention team has been tasked with covering empty positions to keep schools open. We're seeing some progress, particularly at the Bakey School, now that intervention is running more than before. We will share more data as we progress with the newly adopted strategic plan. And then I've listed out each of the positions. So there's 3 reading and 3 math at Bakey, 1 reading and 1 math at Memorial, 1 reading and 1 math at Middle, and 1 reading and 1 math at the high school.
Is that what you currently have as interventionalists?
Yes.
And how many more do you want? I guess that's my question. Like,
That,
I get that's what you have. but that's
Yeah.
not what you want,
okay.
Right?
That would be better answered by the superintendent than me.
Okay.
Okay.
How many students?
You could do a follow-up question on that? Yeah.
Fine.
Okay. The next one is master schedules. Please give master schedules for all grades and subjects. Please describe the scheduling challenges such as SST or ELOs, challenge or alternative. I mean, are ELOs a challenge or an alternative? Does VLAX help with scheduling challenges? I was given these last week and resent to me this morning. I will make sure this gets put in here.
Okay.
Okay. You have to understand there's a lot of moving parts. They've changed the master schedule for all the grades. So that's all being, it's done. Okay. The next one. Do you want me to wait? Huh? Or do you guys want to take a break?
Do you want to take a break?
I don't know. It's up to you. I can keep going.
10 minutes.
Sounds like he wants to.
Do you want, I can also help read some of the questions or something?
No, I'm good.
All right.
I just want to kill a mic.
I do. I want to kill the mic. You're right. 5-minute break just to like get up and walk around. and then-
Yep, go for it.
Okay. So I'm going to jump back in. This question deals with the superintendent's report of February 2nd, 2022. Please give Word documents to all members. Please discuss status and changes planned and made, staffing plans and made, impact on student learning and how being measured. Staffing changes were made in advance and consent of the school board. 3rd and 6th grades were moved to Memorial and the middle school. Everyone has been moved and it's running smoothly. The middle school supports enrollments have been increased by approximately 1/3 due to the change. We've received positive feedback from staff and students. Okay. The next one deals with the capital improvement plan. The capital improvement plan available on the SAU 17 website looks like it was created in 2019 and contains very little in the way of details or items for projected capital improvements. Will a new CIP plan be implemented before 23-24 budget? And will there actually be a CIP item listed out as to-do items on that budget for 23-24? I do want to say that the capital improvement plan was recommended by the facilities committee this evening, and it's going to go before the school board at the next meeting. So this is not going to be completely up to date. The item for Bakey for 17-23 has been either 0 or 1. There's no capital improvement cost built into budget for Bakey over the last 6 years. The line item for Memorial from 17-23 is either 0 to 1. Why there are no capital improvement costs built into the budget for Memorial for any of the last 6 years. The line item for the middle school from 17 to 23 has either been 0 or 1. Why is there no capital improvement built into the budget for the middle school any year for the last 6 years? The line item for the high school 17 to 23 has been either 0 or 1. Why is there no capital improvements cost built into the budget for the high school for the past 6 years? I see random actual costs in the same timeline for capital improvements of 300,000, 179,000, 74,000, 230,000. All these costs, unanticipated costs due to not having a functional CIP plan during this time. We have a draft CIP plan it's now been approved. We are hopeful that will be approved and going before the school board at the next meeting. All the costs needed at the time, all of the costs that were listed in this question here were needed at the time of the expenditure, such as the Bakey boiler. Okay,
The Bakey boiler has been completed.
it has been
That was on a
completed.
different-
That was on a different line, but it also crossed fiscal years. So you'll see the expenditures in one fiscal year and one in another. Okay,
So Matt, that capital improvement plan you've been working on for about 2 years, is that
Mhm.
right?
yes.
Okay. And it's finally done or almost
Well,
ready to be approved.
it's been approved. So that's now the first, we're going to have to start over again. It should be done annually.
Mhm.
Okay. This one, intentional amounts over anticipated spending on budget. During the last budget season, a current school board member stated the following to a local taxpayer in regards to Sanborn school budgets. If you review budget versus actual spending over the past several years, you'll see every year the planned budget is traditionally $1 million plus over actual spending. That's done intentionally to cover any unanticipated expenses. My question related to the statement from the current school board member can you confirm that the statement is true? Does the Sanborn build in $1 million budget safety over what is required? I'm going to answer, go jump down below. We do not build a buffer in the budget. We prepare the budget to accommodate all positions being filled and actual costs to provide a program that covers the curriculum requirements. Okay. So I guess B, if so, is the intention additional 1 million that's being budgeted year after year for specific item that we can see, or is it something that's spread throughout the entire budget as fat? So I'm saying that this is not applicable because we do not build in a cushion or fat into the budget. C, if there's no fat in the budget if there is no fat built into the budget year after year. My answer is there is no fat built into the budget. What they are seeing are mostly unfilled positions and difficulties providing a pre-COVID program. D, what is the district with the district continually returning roughly 1 million to the taxpayers at year end? Where is the additional money coming from if this is not additional funds built into the budget to cover any unanticipated expenses? The answer is unfilled positions and programs that we were not able to run due to COVID or because of the lack of funding staff or finding staff. So
Matt, I don't think this is an accurate answer.
I don't put in $1 million.
You don't put in. We as a budget committee make sure that there's enough so that you're not down to having $1 left at the end of the year to try and figure out how to pay the bills. There is enough so that it's always expected that there will be some unexpended funds at year end that's returned to taxpayers. That has happened for years and years and years and years.
Pre-COVID.
And pre-COVID, it isn't just COVID. COVID resulted in about $2.5 million coming back, but there's always been roughly $1 million. And before, in prior years, before I was ever on the budget committee, there was a history of the school board that was then there of spending every penny they possibly could, not reserving any of the 2.5% and returning only the unexpended special ed funds. So we have a long, long history of having extra money that's in the budget for a safety net. It doesn't mean that there's fat in there. It's a safety net.
Okay.
It's just good budgeting practice.
I don't build budgets in that manner. I try to build budgets. So I look at the program and I try to, and we know how many positions we need to make the program run. And I try to budget for a full program. Okay. I try not to go beyond that. So since I've been here, it's been what we felt was a full program. Now, can we find the bodies to fill it? I can tell you that if we were able to hire all the people for our vacant positions, I'm going to run out of budget appropriation.
Based on that, though, if there are people in these positions who feel that there should be extra money for, you know, for a reason of we run out of money because we're basically coming up with a bottom line dollar, then any person here would almost have to look into adding money to the budget that were proposed. If they're telling you that it's basically base zero, and if you're someone who thinks that there should be extra held on, then it would almost be, you're saying money added to that budget that's given to us. I mean, I know that we're getting ahead here. But
Well,
I think considerably,
that.
but I think we also have to look at how much has been actually spent over the years and how much was actually not spent because of COVID versus not spent as a regular thing that happens. And I would dispute that the budget committee that I've been a part of for the last 8 years, I don't know what Matt has intended, but we have always made sure that it isn't so tight that it is
Yeah.
like down to the wire. We have plenty of extra money in the budget.
And that, okay,
Jamie?
I don't want to make it sound
I'm
like,
calling on Jamie.
Okay, sorry.
Please.
So yeah, just, I would agree that one of the questions here just had 5 years worth of what was returned to the taxpayer.
Mhm.
1.2, 2.2, 2.3,
900 1 year.
1.5. If you look at just this past year, we're operating on a 36 plus small fraction budget. 1.2 million went back to the taxpayers. 537,000 was reserved. Those two together are close to 1.6 million, 1.7 million. Spendings that aren't recurring is $250,000 for the auditorium, $123,000 for the track, $30,000 for an office for the middle school, $17,000 for a basketball court. When you add all these up, you end up with a $1.7, $1.8 million are left over, not needed this year for the programs that occurred this year.
And some of it because of unfilled positions.
And in addition, we had $1.1 million of encumbrances. Now, some of those encumbrances that are rolled will be some of these same numbers. So maybe half of them are other encumbrances, like the truck that was mentioned, that will be available for use in this coming year that aren't going to be out of this year's budget. So we're not down to where do we find the extra nickel. I just counted out, I think, over $2 million worth of monies that were not spent and or needed in this past budget.
yeah, and that's again over at least 5 years, not just, you know, COVID.
Right, this is just this year, just this past year, 2022, those numbers.
If you go back 20 years, you'll find that there's always been money that has been left over also. So
Mhm. I want to address something that Ken had said where he was talking about adding money to the budget. I do want to say that the program was fully budgeted. We just couldn't implement all of it because we couldn't find enough staffing. Okay. This happens every year, no matter what we're going to do, we're always going to end up not being able to fulfill all of our anticipated spending. Okay. So if we add more money to the budget, it just means that it will be more money that we return back to the taxpayers. So if we add something back to the budget, it needs to be planned and done in a measured way.
Yeah, and I'm not stating that I think that that's what should be done. I'm just saying that the philosophy is that this budget theoretically is zero. And that's what we're being told is this budget gets us to zero. And if we wanted to have more than zero, there's only one way to do that.
Yeah.
So you have on your salary list, this 3029 vacant positions. Is that budgeted or is there more budgeted?
So this year is going to be a little difficult to try to like prove that statement out. Next year is going to be easier because it'll be my second year on this new accounting system.
Okay.
So I should theoretically be able to give you a listing of every single open position by line item,
Mhm.
and the budget should tie out to that list.
So if you had to guess right now, do you have 30 open positions?
Um,
Or do you have a different number? I mean, I don't care that this doesn't really matter to me. I'm just asking.
okay, that's not a number that I ask for every day. I think 30 is high. I think it's somewhere between and now this would be facilities,
Everything.
para, yeah, everything. It's going to be high teens, low 20s.
So in those numbers that are budgeted for the open positions, are you including the insurance?
Yes.
The high end or the low end? Well, I
We
mean-
typically use the two-person plan. Because when you look at health insurance, health insurance is kind of one of those gambles too that you do when you're
Absolutely.
trying to create a budget.
Not need
Okay.
it, no,
You don't know what people are going to take. Okay. But you can kind of take the middle of the road and that's going to be about right. Okay. The only drawback with how we do health insurance is trying to guesstimate what the annual increase is. Like last year, I said it was going to be about 10%. The actual premiums came in at like 7.8. So it was just under my estimate.
So what I'm doing is all this is adding up to this number that we're gonna end up with, and we're returning, $1 million to the taxpayers, whatever, but at the same time, another number that's not on this list or that question is you have to account for retirements,
Mhm.
right? And if people don't retire, say somebody that's been here for 20 years, it's gonna get a lot, right? A lot of money for retirement. You guys are supposed to have that money in case you have to pay it out. Do you budget for that? Not fully, but you must budget for something.
Well, we only learn about the retirees who are going to retire at the end of the year about now. Okay. So I can put in their buyout provision as per the CBA agreement in next year's budget. Okay. But if someone just ups and retires in the middle of this fiscal year, I just got to absorb it.
Just for clarification, because the cutoff for what I'll call the lucrative early retirements is based upon seniority and a timing, there's very few employees left that qualify for that, right?
That's correct.
So there's not, generally speaking, for anybody that's not qualified, there's not a big cash out for somebody's decision to retire.
That's correct. Okay.
But if you're looking at 17 positions or something with insurance, that's easily $1 million in my opinion.
Could be.
Yeah, right?
That's where I'm getting at, is
Yeah.
that if they're budgeted for and they're not filled, that's where a good portion, if not all, of that money is coming from.
I would say yes, but then when I look at this same thing occurs every single year for 5 that we see, probably he's talking about 10.
Yeah, I can't speak.
Call that the fat in the budget.
I can't speak for those before me. So
You can call it that.
I preceded you and I've studied them, so I can
Okay.
speak to it.
But still going back to Lee's point, you don't want to set a budget that on June 30th at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, your last nickel goes out the door of the appropriation.
I would be very happy with that.
Living on the edge.
Wouldn't you be like, it'd be January, June 10th, and you'd be like,
Oh no,
nobody needs gas.
I have been at organizations that operate like that, right down to the penny. They go right down to like a 1/4% of their
Folks, can I
appropriation. It's
suggest we move
exciting.
on with the questions.
Yeah.
You still have quite a few.
Okay.
It's
All right.
past 9 o'clock. Is everybody okay that we continue, or do you want to have another meeting?
Good.
Are you
Good.
good?
Okay. And I'll
Okay,
try to
good.
talk faster. At a recent school board meeting, Superintendent Ambrose mentioned that there have been discussions about freezing the budget early this school year due to inflationary fears. Is this common practice in the last 5 to 6 years? Have there been any other times where we froze the budget? If so, when? We froze the budget in fiscal year 18, in 2018, which is fiscal year 19, to a federal budget freeze and a hard freeze, absolutely no spending in March of 2020 due to COVID. We are facing a budget freeze for the current year inflation We are facing a budget freeze for the current year due to inflation. I'm also anticipating a budget freeze a federal budget freeze in February. That's when the continuing resolution expires for the federal government is February. Okay. What's the major event cause? The federal budget freeze has a direct effect on our cash flow and general fund appropriation. When this happens, we still have the obligation to perform grant requirements such as IDEA, special education, but we have to pay for the obligation through the general fund appropriation. So far, the federal government has reauthorized their appropriations prior to us having cash flow issues. COVID caused a potential cash flow issue that resolved itself near the end of the fiscal year and did not affect cash flow for that year. This year, inflation is affecting what we can purchase, which we are now reprioritizing. How are staff informed of budget freeze? Communication comes from the superintendent in consultation with the business administrator to the administrative team leaders, the building principals, the athletic director, and so on. The admin team adjusts their needs with their respective items. Is the frozen budget typically unfrozen at some point if it becomes clear that there's enough funds? And the answer is yes. Are staff informed when the budget is unfrozen in the same manner that they are informed it is frozen, similar to the freeze process above, but in reverse? If any year a budget is frozen, how much did we return to the taxpayers at the end of the year? In fiscal years 2021 and 22, we returned 2.3 million and 2.3 again, respectively. The first year related to a hard freeze in spending due to a threat of no cash flow for the remaining operations. The second year related to not being able to hire for open positions and perform expected activities. The next question deals with health insurance waivers. In 2022-23, we budgeted zero for health insurance waivers after spending approximately 130 each of the previous 2 years. Why? Waivers are budgeted as part of the overall health insurance. We reclass the appropriation as needed. The next question deals with high school subs. In 2022-23, we budgeted $61,000 for substitutes at the high school, even though 3 of the 4 previous years our actual spending was well above that. Why? What are the days for peak sub demand this year, and how do you explain the highest past demand on Mondays and Fridays? And what is the remedy, if any, being proposed? First, we have prepared a budget based upon normal operating budget cycle, despite being in the throes of COVID. We asked for a $27,733 increase, a 13% increase for all programs, which represent an increased substitute rate we use to attract employees. Second, the peak and demand periods are discussed at school board level as part of future negotiations. This is your Monday and Friday question. In fiscal year 22-23, we budgeted zero for ACP after budgeting 105 for previous 3 years, but spending well below that. What is ACP incentives and why is it funding not matched to the actual spending? The new financial software placed the ACP incentives within the staff line items. For this budget cycle, we're going back to the old method. There's 105,000 annually budget as a collective bargaining agreement. Tuition for non-special education in fiscal year 22-23, we budgeted 136,000 for tuition. Non-public school special education when we spent roughly 2 times that amount in the previous 4 years. Why? Students go between line items when they move from grade levels. This reduction accounts for a student move. And then there are 2 more answers to this question. Money follows students as they progress through the grades. Student needs are dynamic and change year to year. We have students that move in and out of the district that cannot be identified during the budget prep process. The next one deals with professional development. In 2023, we budget 107,000 for professional development services district, even though we've spent roughly half or less out of the past previous 5 years. Why is this line item so high year after year? We could spend the full amount plus an additional 30,000. However, COVID interrupted our normal professional development cycle. We anticipate normal operations this fiscal year. Legal fees. In fiscal year 22-23, we budgeted 60,000 in other professional legal fees, even though 3 of the 4 previous years were spent well above this. I noticed this is a relatively small budget item in 17-18, but then was considerably larger in 2018 and on. The massive increase in legal spending happened before COVID, so that isn't the reason. Why has our legal fees been so much over the past 5 to 6 years? In 2023, okay. I thought that was just a lead in. In 2022-23, we budgeted 40,000 for legal services. Actual for 21-22 was listed as 0, but the actual for 2021 was 260. Why did we spend so much in legal services? A variety of topics, including but not limited to union negotiations, COVID-related issues, and special education. Do we have any comparisons with other New Hampshire school districts are spending year over year in total legal fees? We use our attorneys on an as-needed basis, and the needs vary dramatically from year to year. Comparing our legal costs to other districts is not effective because no 2 districts face the same issues year to year. We also fared way better than other districts with regards to keeping school open during COVID. It is expensive to fight legal battles associated with COVID. What impact do these funds have on student learning, and how is it being measured? We kept the buildings open during the height of COVID, and the impact of that is immeasurable.
I think we missed the first part A on that one.
Yeah,
I don't know if we can, you don't have to do it now, but maybe we can get that added.
Well, just guess, did you have
yeah. So
3 CBAs that year? You know what I mean? Like, it
In-
could have been anything like that.
in 22-23, like every single school district in the country, the unions were trying to look at their position in relation to COVID, where we were facing teaching in 2 different forms, one being online and one being in person. Okay. And we use our legal power to help resolve that.
Yeah, it looks like it's like a 2-part question though, where like the first part is it was high before COVID, it was high during COVID, it's high after COVID. And then the other part is
Yeah. And then
why
just
are we not, if we know that it's high, why are we not budgeting for it to be?
Yeah, in the 3 years prior to COVID, we also had 2 administrative CBA negotiations, and we had a teacher's negotiation and a para negotiation during COVID. Okay. Software admin, from 2017 through 2022, we spent roughly 5,000 to 8,000 for software admin, but in 2022-23, we budgeted just $1. Why $1? And why this no longer needed? The building principal requested $1, which in hindsight was not a good idea. It had been previously been 5,000, and we need to change it back for this year. Okay. These are getting smaller.
Did you put them in order so the big ones are up front? It's the most pages.
That would have been
I'm not
good,
so
but I don't think it fell that way.
Mine's apparently last. So I'll try to, can I say like, some of my questions have already been answered, so we might be able to.
What, if you,
skip.
if
Her
you
questions are
come-
great.
If you see a question that you feel you have an answer for, just say already answered, and we can just,
Okay.
we'll let you do that.
So this
Thank
is
you.
this is a bunch of questions that was accumulated by various emails. The first one is how many employees are at the SAU? 22, which includes the superintendent, finance, curriculum, IT, and special education. Title and salary. This amount is in the annual report and uploaded in the document shared by Mr. Angel.
So Matt, if I could stop you right there, how do I tell? I mean, some positions say SAU district wide. Does that mean that's where they are? So there'll be 22 SAU district wide.
17.
There's 17.
No, the number you're looking for is 17. So
Wow.
like in the location, 21 is Bakey, 22 is Memorial.
No. I'm talking about the salary list that you uploaded.
Yes.
So there's no number 7. Oh, maybe there is 17.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, no, in the other one.
So the next one is the current contracts of all administrators. And the answer to that is it will be added to the Google Drive. any sort of addendums to their contracts, and the addendums are annual renewals, cell phone stipends, and travel stipends. These are all included in the contracts.
With
Um,
dollar amounts?
I'm sorry?
With dollar amounts?
Well, you're gonna get a copy of the contract, so you're gonna see the dollar amount terms.
Okay.
I'd also like to know of any bonus structures that may be in place for any of the administration. There are currently none. If there are any bonuses, this one is none. If there are bonuses, how were they achieved? What has been achieved over the last 5 to 6 years? 1 or 2 times for the superintendent, the last payment occurred in May of 2020. Please give a list of all employees, all current employees with salaries and job titles held, as well as funded but vacant positions. Please describe any staffing shifts approved since the February deliberative to address current student needs, as well as the source of funding, whether the line item transfer, reserve fund grants. And we've shared what we have right now. We're currently updating this in light of the changes we've had to make over the summer, and we can't hire enough paras to cover these needs on enrollments in special education. Just know that on your list, someone by mistake closed a position that I have to open back up. Fiscal year encumbrances, 4,910 to replace the failed pump at the middle school, high school. And they said this is not anticipated as part of the overall budget. So the overall questions here were these part of the overall budget or not part of the overall budget? And these are the encumbrances. Basically, they were picking amounts from the list of encumbrances. $1,300 for ballistic glass. This is a round circle in the new security window at Bakey. And for those that went on the tour, I pointed out it's a little circle. The rest of the glass was donated, and I believe the value of the donated glass was about $7,000. This was replaced the plexiglass window at Bakey and was not part of the overall budget. We utilized a sheet of ballistic glass window that was donated to the district. The installation improved the safety and security of the frontline staff at Bakey. The next one is $12,981 for paving the new middle school half-court basketball court. This was not anticipated as part of the overall budget and was approved by the school board to improve the experience of the middle school students during recess. $59,750 for relining the sewer pipes at Bakey. This was not anticipated as part of the overall budget. The septic line crack as it passed by the water wellhead. Not repairing this line would have resulted in the closure of Bakey. $36,820 for replacing 2 septic pumps at Bakey. This was not anticipated as part of the overall budget. One of the 2 septic pumps failed. The second pump was the same age of the and was close to failure upon closer inspection. Had the second pump failed, it would have closed the building. $6,693 for a cinder block wall installation and ballistic glass frame at Bakey. This was not anticipated as part of the overall budget, but it's related to the ballistic window installation at Bakey. It improved overall safety and security at the building. $4,519 to replace aged out AEDs. This is part of the this is partially part of the overall budget. We include an annual fee inspection for each of the units and somewhere beyond their life cycle when inspected. We have implemented a new inspection program to prevent this in the future. $7,175 for floor gym maintenance. This happens annually. This is within the annual budget, and the floors must be maintained to preserve the finish. $9,617 for preventative maintenance on 3 water systems. We have 3 licensed municipal wells, which have to be maintained to state standards. This is within the annual budget and is required to maintain our municipal well designation by the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. $10,639 for repairs and replacement of Bakey cameras and related video equipment, storage equipment that failed. Failure of the Bakey cameras was not anticipated as part of the overall budget, but had to be replaced due to the safety, student safety concerns. $4,979 for annual preventative maintenance for 2 generators, Bakey Middle School. We have 2 generators that are included in the overall budget and must be maintained. $2,196 to replace the employee badge printer. The employee badge printer for this thing, for this, had to be replaced. This was an unanticipated failure. 3,400 for the Alertus and for Chromebook. This is related to school safety and is typically budgeted. During one of our drills, it was discovered that the Chromebooks did not have the Alertus running, which did not notify the group of students of the drill event. This purchase increased the notice of an event should it occur.
Wait, can I just ask? I'm just curious. Does that notify all the Chromebooks?
Yeah,
Lockdown?
when it was configured wrong and it locked down my computer. And when it went off, it's scary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
$47,685 for special education services. I cannot disclose due to student confidentiality laws. $12,944 for library books. Library books are intended in the budget annually. Overall, we experienced significant shipping difficulties that would otherwise have delayed the books.
Not just a clarification, does that mean that we spent $12,944 for expediting books?
For what?
For expediting books?
No, we purchased the books. We gave out a purchase order, but because of all the shipping delays and
It's encumbered. They
paper
had to
delays,
uncover it.
I was
Yeah.
just thinking that that's a lot of expediting for library books.
the remainder of this really isn't a question. Okay. Let's see. The last one.
Oh, boy.
Yay.
17 pages.
Yep. No, so a lot of my questions were policy related, so I want to read the policy before I read the budget line item to say like, okay, that's great, we spent that money, but did we spend it in line with our policies? So I see, Matt, that you have added the policies in. So thank you.
Yes. Okay. So do you want me to read them out? I'll read the questions and tell you that the policy was inserted. So please share policy on travel, mileage, and reimbursement. And I gave where all the school board policies are found. And then the specific policies for this particular question are DAF 7, which relates to federal funds, and GCBF, which relates to travel expenses. The next one deals with stipends. Please elaborate on what stipends can be used. Refer me to the policy as needed. In fiscal year 2019-20 was the last time this account was used. This is a travel stipend per contract, so it's an old account. Professional improvement services, professional development. This goes unspent for the last 5 years. Not suggesting to cut it. I'm suggesting that we look in why our staff is not investing in their
You've
career.
kind of answered that one before about professional development.
Yeah.
Go on,
So
Ted.
I gave out the specific accounts that were in this question. Okay. So the person related to this account retired months before COVID hit. The new building principal used some of the funds for their professional development in fiscal year 21. I expect usage will increase going forward. The next one, similarly, similar to the last account, where usage depends upon the building principal at the time. And then the final one, the account was used just prior to COVID. Please know that accomplishing professional development has been difficult since COVID. We're moving towards a pre-COVID model now. Capital improvement. We have 2 capital improvement plans posted on our website. We've never allocated any money towards capital improvements. Capital improvement funds can be used, but the balance is so low that it can't possibly cover all the needs across the district. Taking out bonds and loans costs the taxpayers more long-term. The capital improvement plan is a strategic plan and initial budgeting planning document. It is not intended to be a spending roadmap. Reserve funds should be used to help smooth the tax rate through measured planning. While a capital improvement fund should be tied to the CIP plan, it's not intended to be used as a saving account to accomplish the plan. Rather, in my professional opinion, capital improvement funds should be capped at a % of the overall CIP plan, usually 30%. Capital reserve versus issuing debt is a larger philosophical discussion. If capital funds are used, taxpayers paying into the fund may not receive the benefit of them if they die or move out of the community prior to the purchase. Issuing debt is more in line with the user of the capital item when they're paying for debt service during the time of the use. Over my career, I've noticed a trend of moving from using capital reserve funds towards issuing debt for capital purchases. This next one deals with facilities. Please provide a list of assets at each school and appropriate for their maintenance plan.
And you said you were including a list, right?
Yes,
Perfect.
yes. So I said life cycle maintenance is a discussion that revolves around the capital improvement plan and it's community specific. A maintenance plan in relation to a New Hampshire school district is one that is specified by the state when receiving state building aid. In the example of this plan specifies the frequency of when certain items are inspected, maintained, and cleaned. So we have one for this building because we receive state aid. Okay, old middle school.
I think we've got this one covered.
Sure.
Yeah, I
Okay.
said we're talking about Swayze. I think we're
Yeah.
good.
Okay, old middle school. I do not see what we're, anything for the old middle school and what we're paying. It's in the district-wide costs.
You don't
Okay.
have that broken out?
No,
What are we paying?
for the old middle school,
Yeah, like, are we,
we're paying for a portion of the electricity. We're paying for a portion of the heat and maintenance for a certain portion of the building.
Because you said when the walkthrough there, approximately 60% of the building is what they're using. But the other 40 is storage and just general upkeep costs, I would assume.
Is there a reason why, Matt, they don't break that?
No,
Just, we
it's just the chart of accounts for the district needs to be revamped.
we obviously are paying insurance on it too.
Yes. Yeah, and we're also paying for the heating oil and electricity. Because if I lose those, my buying power decreases so much that the cost for the overall electricity needs goes way up.
Yeah, I get it.
Okay, so talking about $1 line items is just a placeholder.
Placeholder for what?
If they, so they have that account, so.
In case they need it in the future and they
in case
can
need
budget
it.
into
If
it.
they zero it, they can't use it.
But there are a whole bunch that are zero.
They can't use those ones.
Is that what it
They
is? So
leave
they're
it
just
$1
gone.
so they can use it.
And they can do line item transfers and
Right.
stuff.
Correct. You can't do a line item transfer to zero budget line. but you
So,
can do
like-
a line item transfer into a dollar budget line.
If they had something that they needed 1 year and it was zero, they couldn't transfer money into it to expend it. But if it's $1, then they can transfer money into it. If they need 10 grand for whatever, just say lawn services, and it's $1, they can do that. If it's zero, they can't do it.
So what do they do all the other years when you look and there's lots of things that are zero, but then we see actual is much higher?
I record the accounting for, like, we just had a social worker, okay? There's a specific function code for social worker, and that has to be reported to the state in a specific way.
So it's more reporting than anything else.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, you
Yeah.
see it all, if you look at the thing, it says zero,
Right.
but spent this. And if you can't do that, then how are we doing it?
Because he has to report it to the state a certain way.
It's just more work for Matt, then I'm fine with
Yes,
$0.
essentially, yes.
State is fine with giving Matt more work.
All right, the next one is,
We're assuming, so we're saying we don't need to spend any money in that line item for this year. We're
We
not
don't think we-
expecting.
Right, right. We don't think we're going.
But there is the ability to, if we need to. It just sounds like it's a little more work on the bookkeeping end. Maybe.
Somebody's made a determination that we don't expect to spend any money.
okay,
Ready for 54 questions, Matt. No.
okay,
54 accounts with $1.
Yes,
Yeah.
there are. There are 54.
He's gonna answer every one. He's not gonna get all of it.
If I'll refer you to answer. B.
okay, I'm gonna move on.
Sorry, yep.
So why does the library have its own function, but art, music, and others don't? And I'm saying it's complicated. The library is a program in itself where regular education program includes art and music as curriculum. So regular education is what you see every day, and library is separate from regular education. You get it? Okay,
So like,
Art and music are a class. Library is not a class.
that's right.
Room.
okay,
Okay, so
Doesn't move.
now,
It does, everything has wheels.
so
So
I
the-
guess these are just general accounting things that I'll read your answers. I'm sure people,
yeah, okay. So the chart of accounts is prescribed by law. The New Hampshire Department of Administrative Code, I gave you the link there.
love it.
It gives you each of the accounts, okay? And
I
it's
will look
further
at it.
refined through guidance from the New Hampshire Department of Education in their financial accounting handbook.
I was just trying to say that for the most part, I can follow along to say like what each building needs. But when it comes to each program, it was really hard to pull from that budget what's needed to run the program. So if there's rules about it, I'll learn more about the rules and
Yeah.
I'll figure it out. But it makes it really difficult for me, and I have a pretty good understanding. So it's like anyone else who's looking at it who doesn't, it's just confusing.
Yeah,
I mean, I think there's probably a couple comments about this. So
okay. So you just kind of like went through the last one right there, okay?
Yep.
So I'm gonna skip this one. Why are we paying for SROs? I think we did that in the other one.
Yep.
Okay, and skip that one there. So the question about all the special education is found on our website, and I linked it right there. Tuition for special education.
I think we're good with that one.
Yeah, tuition is determined specifically by a student's IEP plan, okay? It is not a parent choice. It is by the specific plans. And then you're asking if there's a number of students in these programs at each school. And what about the projections? The budget is projected using current enrollments. Changes are made throughout the year when IEPs are changed or when students move in and out of the district. Summer school.
Whole line.
I believe
If
it.
they have to bus the kid to a different school, it blows up that whole line. It's way more expensive.
Summer school. Can someone explain how this is used? What is summer consultations? And it's so basically it's contracted nursing and speech services. Bilingual. Does the district have different bilingual service providers at each school? No, it was set up wrong in the accounting system. It was supposed to be charged to individual schools, but it's been charged district-wide. For state reporting purposes, district-wide is fine because it's being allocated by student count. The rationale behind making school costs versus district costs, a school is a fixed percentage, while district-wide can be allocated by student population. The latter is more refined for state reporting purposes. Books and supplies. How does the administration determine costs for books and supplies for each of the subject from teacher and principal, from teachers, principals, and curriculum staff based upon approved curriculum? So we're going to look at like if there's consumables for that curriculum.
But teachers are telling you, or are you telling the teachers?
Teachers are telling the building principal who's putting it in their budget, who tells me.
Okay.
Policy requests.
You threw them in there.
Yeah, what is our long-term benefit package? Only the administrators get long-term benefit, long-term disability through Unum. All other employees have to pay for long-term disability benefit if they select it. Tuition reimbursement was our tuition reimbursement policy. The policy is found here. Also, you have to recognize too that we have all these policies, but when we do a collective bargaining agreement, it can override those policies. Okay, so you have to look at each individual bargaining agreement, and they'll have a tuition reimbursement section as well.
Okay.
Okay. The next one here is this is a special education program, and it deals with connections. What does this program support? Why are the subs needed last year, but we're not budgeted for the upcoming previous year? We have to budget normally in a COVID environment. Connections is going to be on that website list.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. This is a regular program.
Oh my God.
Spend not budgeted.
Yeah.
Why are we spending 8 to 12,000 a year for something not included in the budget? This is required by the collective bargaining agreement for professional staff, whether we use it or not. We do not know each of the incentive. This is ACP incentives. When the budget's created, which is a single account, state reporting requires us to report the expenditure in the correct program, regardless of where it's budgeted.
But
Online.
so back to the $1 versus, but like, I think this is another, we said, we're gonna spend $0, but consistently we're spending like 15, I don't know, I
100
forget how much it
It's like
is.
105,000. Yeah.
But so why aren't we including that?
Yeah, if it's
I'm getting
consistent.
authorization at the $105,000 level for these particular programs, but for state reporting purposes, it's not. You can't, if I can't put it in the high school or put it in Bakey, I can't do the tuition correctly for Fremont. See what I'm saying? See, the ACP is put in a district-wide account, then I have to take it and place the actual cost in the location where it's being recorded.
But it is accounted for somewhere else.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
okay. Online access fees. Why did it go from 15,000 to 0? The building principal aligned costs with the curriculum in 2022. The account selected relates to instruction, while the cost incurred was for the library, different program. I agree with how the building principal realigned the cost. So they were previously budgeting in the wrong area.
Okay.
Supplies, tech ed, this budget fluctuates based upon need. When the 2023 budget was created, the principal believed the need for this cost was low. This does not mean there will be no future cost in this line item. Replace furniture, special education. What does the special education have? Why do they have for their own furniture line item? This is the purchase furniture based upon the student's IEP.
So that's a perfect example of leaving it at $1 or $2, right? One
But
year
they
they may
give us-
not need to buy anything. Next year they have a student that needs a special chair or something like that, so they have to use that account to buy that furniture.
But the one above is $0
And we still used it.
and we still use it.
That I can't explain.
So
but
I-
can explain the dollar.
Again, it was a.
But we have to, we have to provide the service no matter what, because there's an IEP. The law requires us to provide that service.
In theory, it sounded good with the $1, but
Yeah.
Explain the dollar ones. The $0 ones I can't explain. So.
Okay. Health services.
Well, we get to prepare a budget, so this is existing ones.
What are required for state reporting purposes to allocate costs between middle and high school? However, their operations combined. So health services are the nurses. Okay. So there's one nurse for middle school, one nurse for high school. They're in the same building, but the cost is allocated. Assemblies. Why do we have duplicates? There are two separate programs. 1100 is the regular education program, while 2190 is support services program. The building principal decided the account for the assemblies under the regular education program for 2023. So they combined it.
So, what? There's two. I think.
This is where the building principal put the money in that particular year. Okay. And so as we're remember a couple of years ago, we were doing a lot of movement around the district and
Okay.
duplicate items. These are duplicate items. What do we do with allocation? We no longer use 1230 is home base, 1244 zones. These are separate and distinct programs for each other or from each other. They're not duplicate.
Okay.
Duplicate rental equipment. What is this? Between 2630 and 2600. 2600 is a facility operation and relates to the dumpster rentals and the black walls on the exterior of the building. 2630 is the grounds operation and relates to any equipment that they may need to maintain the fields. Memorial. What's the difference between these two? 1240 is in step, 1242 is the basics program. We will fix the 1240 series account to say in step. Artist and resident, why is it 0? Artist and resident for Bakey is, and I give you the account where it's located, and the account's called enrichment.
Okay.
This is $1 for speech. We prefer to perform the service in-house. When we can't perform it in-house, we'll contract out the service. The $1 is just a placeholder.
Here it is, my dollar.
She wants that dollar.
I
By the-
know,
by the
she
end
wants
of
the
this-
$54.
She wants that dollar bill.
I just said, again, it was a philosophy, like why is sub-zero-one? I asked for philosophy, not necessarily.
Okay, rental equipment, why is it so much higher than other schools? Example, Bakey is 8,000. Memorial and the high school have the black walls on the side that are heating, just the black walls.
Perfect.
Okay, function 1270 is the right place for this. This is STEM, and it's yes, because it's set by the state. I didn't see STEM supply lines for any of the other schools. How are they handled? Bakey calls it STEM, while the other schools called it enrichment. Middle school and high schools have it as part of their regular education function within their curriculum. What you didn't see it as STEM because it was, they're treating it different names. Admin supplies. Why did it go from 7,350 to 17,400? What changed? The building principal decided to realign cost to their correct account, which I agreed with. Security maintenance system, the rationale behind maintenance as its own line item. Why are we spending money to maintain a system if we're identifying and budgeting money to maintain it? Security services has its own state code according to the accounting manual. We have to report to the state with this code.
Okay.
Which books are being purchased under this function? What appears to be board related? And it's called the Basic Laws of Budgeting.
It's riveting.
Yeah,
It's a
and I gave
bestseller.
you a link.
It's like, why does the school board have a book budget?
Oh,
But
we're opening
okay,
the book.
Look
Mhm.
at that. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I got it for the budget committee for the last couple of years, but for whatever reason, we didn't do it this year. Anyways, miscellaneous expenses, 2310. Please provide examples of what the $9,668 was used for. Payment to SOROC per the budget committee and school board request, police detail for meetings, crystal vases for retiring employees. I do expect the police detail costs will decline as COVID declines. We talk about printing. This is printing for the district meeting. Why can't we create a QR code or a link for someone to help minimize this cost? This is to print the annual report, and not all voters, resident taxpayers have computers.
We spend almost $6,000 on printing books.
Yes,
Is that required by law too, that you have to print it?
yes.
I'm not, but how many?
How many? Just print one.
I mean, how many do you print? Just out of curiosity.
I don't know.
Maybe hundreds, I would think, I don't know.
It would be hundreds.
Are those the books that you give out at the deliberative?
Yes,
Don't they have those at town hall though too, or no?
yes.
Yeah,
Oh, they're everywhere.
yeah, in the
And-
libraries.
So the school does it and the town does it. So, I mean,
Oh,
there's, the town does their own, the school has their own, so
okay.
it is required by law. The amount, I don't know.
I thought it was required to have a print.
Yeah, I don't know if one would pass the.
No, but if only
Okay,
three.
okay. Let's finish.
Okay, this question here is function 3100. This really deals with the contract for school food service. Okay, it includes the salaries and the product for all locations throughout the district, and for state reporting purposes, I allocate it by meal counts. Anticipated federal projects, we went over this before. It's a placeholder for federal grants. I report it to you in summary. One time I did report it in detail. It caused a lot of confusion.
Okay.
Other purchase services, this is, again, this is a 3100 series account. This is school food services. This is, this is a 1300 series account. This is our vocational education, which is mostly SST. This is technical services at the high school. What are we providing? Specifically, we're providing the high set testing, PSATs, PSATs. I don't know what the SQT and college board costs.
Is that it?
Ta-da!
Oh, my goodness.
Isn't that exciting?
For asking all those questions,
Your
Gordon.
questions were just short anyways, so it was good.
Yeah, if it'd have been shorter, the rain would have been very, very hard when we got out. So I
Yeah.
appreciate your forethought.
That's accurate.
All right. So I have a couple questions I have to follow up on, and you guys are
Okay,
gonna ask
so,
me more.
so here's the procedure that we've worked out with the administration is that anyone who has a follow-up on any of these questions, not new questions, but any follow-up on any of these questions that you don't feel that you have a full answer on, email Matt. And then he will respond with a reply all to all budget committee members so that we all are part of the communication. When, before the superintendent presents what his budget thoughts are to us on November 2nd, we will do a document that will be public of all the communications of all those emails so that we're compliant with right to know. So it's out there in the public. And, but in the meantime, we just get the information. It'll be BCC'd, so they won't be conversations back and forth. So we
Yep.
say safe, but we keep informed. So that's the procedure that you use if you have any follow-up questions on all this ton of material that you presented.
Yeah,
And by the way, folks, excellent questions.
yes.
Really, good stuff.
On your follow-up questions, if you find that I haven't answered your question, please call me because I get a bazillion emails every day. So,
Yeah, Matt's a lot better with the phone call.
yes.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Matt.
Matt. Thank you.
All right.
Okay,
Pardon?
the next meeting that we have is November 2nd, and it's a joint meeting with the school board. It's on a Wednesday night, and it will be at 6 o'clock. And that's when the superintendent will be giving his budget recommendations to the school board and the budget committee. And then we'll start another Q&A session just on that. What?
How does that work? Are like the budget committee members just gonna sit out there?
No,
again?
we sit around the table. Yep.
It's not question and answer format, though.
It is not question and answer. It's all one-way communication. 2 weeks, and then in the following couple of weeks, we have a similar process to this, once again, where you ask questions about the budget that he's recommending, and the school board also asks them, and then we have a joint meeting with the school board where they get the answers. Same format as this, and then an opportunity for follow-up. Okay, and then we'll make our budget out of all that. There being nothing else, right?
No, that was it.
That's it.
Yeah.
I'm declaring us adjourned. Good night, folks.